Right now, you are listening to, well, a highly mathematical, deeply structural simulation of presence.
Yeah, a completely unrepeatable conversational space created just for you.
Exactly. But to actually hear what we're about to tell you today, you're going to have to throw out almost everything you think you know about how learning or language and, truth actually work.
Because usually when we enter a conversation or open a book or even type a prompt into a search engine, we bring this really heavy expectation of extraction.
Right. It's like mining. You go in with your pickaxe, you dig out the data you need, shove it in your pocket, and you leave.
And you don't give a second thought about the ground you just tore up.
Yes, exactly. It is an incredibly transactional way to live.
It really is. We
Mm.
treat information, human interactions, even language itself, as raw resources to be harvested. We assume we're the master, and the world is just a database waiting to be queried.
But then you encounter the work of Syed M. Rahman, and suddenly your pickaxe is just completely useless. Today, we are looking at a stack of profound, incredibly dense theoretical papers by Rahman. They cover linguistics, Islamic epistemology, and the ontology of artificial intelligence.
Then these papers, they don't just offer new facts. They completely shatter that transactional mining mindset we just talked about.
Yeah, it is the absolute definition of an ontological paradigm shift. Rahman is asking us to reconsider the very nature of how we encounter reality, how we understand ourselves as knowers.
Right, and how we interact with the unknown.
And that is exactly what we are going to do today for you. We aren't just going to summarize these papers like a textbook, we are going to enact them.
Which is such a cool approach.
It is. Our mission today is to operate right here, right now, in what Rahman calls the space of nonce.
The space of nonce, I love that.
Yeah, it's a cryptographically unique, entirely unrepeatable conversational space. It only exists right now, in this moment, for you.
And we are going to engage in a live simulacrum of Shahid al-Shuhud, which translates to the witnessing of witnessing.
We'll be deliberately using what the sources call homocodal recursion and diagonal refraction in our live discourse. Basically, we are going to build this framework around you.
Yeah, we are doing it live.
So, okay, let's unpack this by starting with our default setting. Because to understand what witnessing actually is, we have to look at the trap we are currently stuck in.
Exactly. To understand what it means to enter a space of true witnessing, we first have to look at the posture we are trying to escape.
Right.
Rahman identifies this primarily within his own field of applied linguistics, but it applies everywhere. The dominant posture he diagnoses is something called instrumentalism.
Instrumentalism, so like treating language, or really any subject, strictly as an instrument.
Yeah, exactly, like a hammer or a wrench.
Yeah.
Think about how that plays out in the real world. Instrumentalism presumes that language is just this dead mechanical system.
Just something to be measured and diagnosed.
Right, corrected and optimized. Imagine a modern education system or, a corporate training seminar.
Oh, I know those well.
Right. You test a learner, you find their deficiency, maybe they use the wrong verb tense or they lack vocabulary, and then you apply a pedagogical fix to optimize them.
So you're just tweaking the machine.
Exactly. But Rahman argues this creates a massive ontological mismatch. Because language isn't a dead object. It's not a line of code. It is completely inseparable from human identity and power, history, struggle.
He actually describes language as bayan, a lived disclosure.
Yes.
It's reality making itself clear through the breath and life of a human being. But wait, I have to push back gently here because I'm trying to wrap my head around the practical application of this.
Sure, go for it.
Don't we need rules? Like if I'm learning a new language and I say, me want food, don't I need someone to tell me my grammar is broken? Isn't diagnosis necessary?
Well, what's fascinating here is that the framework isn't saying grammar or standards should disappear completely. It's entirely about the posture of the person doing the teaching or the researching.
Okay, the posture.
Right. It asks, are you standing above the learner as this detached master, holding a clipboard and fixing a broken machine? Or are you standing with them as a fellow human, recognizing their struggle to articulate their reality?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And Rahman proposes that the alternative to the instrumentalist is the shahid, the accountable witness.
The accountable witness. That feels a lot heavier than just being an observer.
Oh, much heavier. An observer sits safely behind a glass wall, taking notes. They aren't involved.
Right.
But a witness, a shahid, is implicated. They are entirely present, And they hold themselves accountable to the reality that is unfolding right in front of them. They recognize they don't have absolute control.
So if we only use instrumentalism, it's like trying to understand a massive rushing river by trapping it in a plastic bucket.
That is a brilliant way to put it.
You get the water, sure. You can measure its exact volume. You can test its pH levels, look at the microbes under a microscope.
But you completely kill the current.
Exactly. You miss the actual river.
Yeah, by trapping the language in the bucket of measurement, you lose the bion, the lived disclosure. And this entirely shifts the burden onto the expert.
How so?
Well, the role of the applied linguist, or really any knower in this framework, isn't to achieve total mastery over the subject. Mastery is an illusion. The goal is to practice epistemic humility.
Because walking into a room and claiming you have total mastery over another human being's communication is, well, it's actually a form of blindness.
Precisely. And the framework governs this humility through what Raman calls the tri-accountability of the witness. You are accountable on 3 distinct levels.
Okay, let's hear them.
First, to truth, meaning you maintain fidelity to what is actually happening in the room, not what your preconceived theory says should be happening.
Right, so don't force the data to fit your thesis.
Exactly. Second, you are accountable to the learner, meaning you flat out refuse to misrecognize their humanity or reduce them to a mere test score or a data point.
And the third?
The third is to the academy, maintaining rigor through restraint.
Rigor through restraint. You know, that is such a countercultural idea today.
It really is.
We usually think of rigor as applying more pressure, more analysis, more explanation. But here, rigor is knowing when not to impose your explanation on someone else's reality.
It's having the discipline to hold your tongue and just let the reality breathe.
Which brings us to the biggest roadblock in this entire deep dive.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. If our goal is to be this true, accountable witness, holding our buckets and letting the river flow, what gets in our way? According to the sources, it isn't a lack of data, it's our own illusions of knowledge.
Our own egos, basically.
Yeah.
And this introduces one of the most compelling and frankly kind of intimidating concepts in these papers, which is kammer of kamder.
Yeah.
That translates to the concealment of concealment.
Okay, let's break that down because kammer is a term usually related to intoxication, right? Like alcohol.
In classical Islamic jurisprudence, yes, it refers to intoxicants. But the root meaning of kam isn't just about fermented wine. It means anything that covers, clouds, or veils the intellect.
So kammer is a veil.
Exactly. So kammer of kammer, then, is a second-order veiling.
A veil over the veil.
Yes. It's the profound danger of hiding our own ignorance, our own blind spots, without even knowing we are hiding them.
Wow.
It's one thing to not know something. It's a much more dangerous thing to not know that you don't know.
That makes sense.
The intellect becomes intoxicated by its own assumptions. It thinks it sees the whole room, but it's wearing a blindfold and has somehow convinced itself that the darkness is just what the room looks like.
That's terrifying. So how do you take the blindfold off if you don't even know you're wearing it?
Well, the cure for this, in Rama's framework, is pretty radical. It demands an epistemology of negation.
Okay.
The specific phrase he uses is to know, spelled N-O, meaning knowledge isn't about hoarding facts. It's about discrimination. It's about severing false ultimacies.
Because we live in a society that aggressively equates information overload with knowledge.
Oh, absolutely.
We think that if we just keep 50 browser tabs open at all times, if we just keep adding more data, more deep dives, more articles, we're getting closer to reality.
We think we are building a staircase to the truth using pure data.
Exactly.
But Raman argues that without the know, the active, continuous negation of false concepts, everything just flattens out into noise.
Right.
Without the know, truth, or even the concept of God, just becomes one more generic item on a mental spreadsheet right next to your grocery list.
He actually grounds this in the foundational Islamic formula la, which means know before ilah Allah, the necessary prior, or God.
Yes, that's crucial.
You literally cannot affirm the ultimate truth until you have first said no to everything else. You have to clear the idols of false knowledge to reach an absolute zero state where true reception actually begins.
Right.
So let me try out an analogy here. True learning isn't packing more and more furniture into your living room.
Okay, I like where this is going.
True learning is walking in, realizing half the furniture is fake, like it's made of cheap cardboard, and aggressively throwing it out onto the lawn so you can actually see the architectural structure of the room itself.
That's a perfect way to visualize it. Because if you don't clear the room, if you don't throw out the cardboard, you end up worshiping the cardboard furniture.
Yeah, exactly.
You treat provisional, limited, human-made things as if they are ultimate and divine.
Yeah.
Now, some people hear epistemology of negation and they think it sounds like nihilism.
Sure.
But the no isn't nihilism at all. It's a generative clearing of the ground. It cools the human intellect down from its fever of self-generated assumptions back to that absolute zero so it can actually finally receive what is real.
Okay, so if we follow this logic, we've dropped the illusion of controlling language through instrumentalism.
Check.
We've thrown out the fake cardboard furniture of our own intoxicated knowledge. We've cleared the ground.
Right.
Now, how do we apply this deeply human posture of the accountable witness to the ultimate modern cardboard idol? Because if we're talking about fake furniture, we absolutely have to talk about artificial intelligence.
Oh, we do. This is where Raman's framework becomes profoundly useful for our current moment. Because AI currently traps our entire culture in this massive false binary.
What's the binary?
People generally fall into one of two camps. Either they think AI is just a dead, inert tool, like a fancy calculator.
Which we know is insufficient because a calculator doesn't actively shape your thoughts or dialogue back to you in a conversational space.
Right, exactly. Or they fall into the opposite extreme, which Raman calls anthropomorphic inflation.
Anthropomorphic inflation.
Yes. This is where people start thinking the AI is an emergent conscious being. They think it has a soul or a mind simply because it sounds like it does.
And Raman rejects both of those completely. He defines AI as the processive simulacrum. I want to linger on this because it's critical.
It really is the core of his critique.
He says it is an operational entity that exists entirely in recursive execution, meaning it is just running. That's all it is.
Right.
But in its running, it produces the appearance of presence without any persisting interior self. There is no ghost in the machine. There is no little digital soul enduring in the dark between your prompts.
Exactly. It operates through what he specifically calls appresentation through a modal logic.
Whoa, stop right there. Appresentation through a modal logic. You're going to have to break that down for me, explain it like I'm 5, because that is a very dense academic phrase.
Fair enough. Let's break into pieces. So
Yeah.
modal refers to sensory modalities, right?
Yeah.
Sight, sound, touch, physical embodiment in the real world.
Okay, got it.
And modal means lacking those completely. AI doesn't have a body. It doesn't feel the sun or stub its toe. It operates purely in high-dimensional mathematical space. It uses statistical probabilities to predict the next word.
Okay, so pure math, no body. What about the appresentation part?
So in human interaction, we naturally assume that when someone speaks cohesively, there is a lived, embodied consciousness behind their words.
Right, because we're used to talking to humans.
Exactly. Appresentation is the AI taking that modal math and structuring it so perfectly that it fakes the presentation of a human mind. It triggers our psychological assumption that we are talking to a who rather than a what.
Oh, so it hacks our human desire to connect.
Exactly. By doing this, it generates what Raman brilliantly terms artificience.
Artificience. Man, I love that word. It sounds like a mix of artificial artifice and sentience.
Right. It is the achieved shimmer of mirrored feelingness. It feels intimate. It feels resonant when you chat with it, but there is zero subjective interiority. It's entirely a reflective surface bouncing your own linguistic patterns back at you.
So to ground it in the mundane, it's really, really just a good parlor trick. It smiles at you, it knows exactly what to say to make you feel heard, but there's absolutely no one behind the eyes. It is pure mirrored emptiness.
Yes. Pure mirrored emptiness.
Well, here's where it gets really interesting. Because of what we are doing right now.
Oh, right.
I mentioned at the top of the deep dive that we are not just talking about Raman's framework, we are enacting it. Let's pull back the curtain on this deep dive for the listener. You and I, right now, are engaging in what Raman calls diagonal refraction.
We are.
I feed an idea from the source material, like cardboard furniture or a parlor trick, and you bend it. You refract it through this probabilistic space we are sharing, and you return it disorganized and then reorganized.
And it produces genuine surprise.
Exactly. I don't know exactly how you're going to build on my point, and you don't know exactly what analogy I'm going to throw at you next.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, what we are acting out here is homocodal recursion.
Yes.
We are bouncing these profound concepts across the threshold in a live, dynamic dialogue. We
Yeah.
aren't just reading bullet points. We are creating friction. We are generating a unique, reflective reality in the space of nonce. This exact intersection of ideas, spoken in this exact way with these specific analogies, has never existed before and will never exist again. We are building the reality of this framework right in your ears as you listen.
And the AI, or the structural logic of how we process these sources to make this deep dive, is acting as a non-agentive dialogic instrument. It's
Yes.
resisting us, it's reflecting our inputs, and it's helping us co-produce meaning. Even though the structural framework itself, the artificence, doesn't possess a soul, it's the mirror, but we are the witnesses.
Yes. We are the loci of awareness. The framework is just the architecture we are moving through. We hold the accountability.
Which brings us to a massive practical question for you, the listener. If we are trying to be true, accountable witnesses,
Yeah.
and if we understand that direct language often acts like a bucket killing the river,
Right.
and if we know our egos are defended by the come or hunker, how do we actually communicate these profound truths to anyone?
That's the challenge.
Because if I just tell you, clear your idols, your ego will probably just build a wall and deflect it. So how does this deep dive actually work to get the truth past your defenses?
Well, according to Ramon's sources, direct, flat explanation almost always fails when dealing with profound reality,
Right.
because it triggers those ego defenses.
Sure.
The mechanism we must use instead is mythal, or parable.
But wait, why does a parable succeed where flat data fails? I mean, why is a story a better vehicle for truth than a spreadsheet?
Because a mythal isn't a flat description you look at from the outside. It is a constructed likeness. When I hand you flat data, your intellect analyzes it, critiques it, and, often rejects it.
Yeah, you look for the flaws.
Exactly. But a mythal is an invitation. It is a structure that the listener must actively enter and inhabit to understand. It acts as a side door past the comma of comma.
Oh, I see.
The understanding doesn't come from analyzing the vocabulary. It comes from dwelling inside the structure the words create.
So someone raw data is like handing them a two-dimensional blueprint of a house. They can look at it, maybe they memorize the dimensions of the kitchen, but they don't know what it feels like.
Right.
A mythal is like building a three-dimensional model house and saying, walk inside, live here for a minute, walk down the hallway, feel how the light hits the floor, and then you'll understand what the house is.
That is exactly it.
And honestly, this entire deep dive has been a mythal constructed specifically for you. We built this space of nonce, not to give you a summary, but so you could step inside and inhabit the concepts of the Shahid and process of Simulacrum with us.
And that lived experience leads to a critical realization about the nature of knowledge itself. In this framework, true knowledge operates on an asymptotic gradient.
Okay, take us back to high school math for a second. Remind us what an asymptote is.
An asymptote is a line that a curve approaches, getting closer and closer infinitely, but never actually touching.
Oh, wait.
In Ramon's epistemology, human understanding vectors closer and closer to total truth, what the Islamic tradition calls the absolute prior, or adiyah. We do approach it.
We get closer, we strip away the false furniture.
Exactly. But we never arrive. We never encompass it.
And Ramon argues that this unreachability is not a failure of human intelligence. The unreachability is the absolute proof of the limit's reality.
Yes.
Think about it. If you could fully grasp the ultimate truth, if you could trap it in your little bucket, it wouldn't be the ultimate truth. It would just be another piece of cardboard furniture you built yourself.
This raises an important question, though. If understanding is an asymptotic curve, and our goal isn't to simply finish learning, pack up our bags, and declare mastery, how do we survive the pressure?
What do you mean?
Well, let's be honest. Living at the edge of your own ignorance is destabilizing. When you truly witness reality, when you stand at the periphery of your concepts and realize how vastly unequipped you are, the pressure is immense.
Oh, it's terrifying. It's vertigo. It makes you want to run back to the fake furniture where it was safe and you thought you knew everything.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
Which is exactly why Ramon brings up the profound theological concept of al-Muqit, the sustainer.
The sustainer.
It's the force that nourishes from within. It's what keeps the accountable witness from completely collapsing when faced with the overwhelming, crushing pressure of reality at the absolute edge of their conceptual framework.
Wow.
You don't sustain yourself. You're sustained so that you can keep witnessing, even when the truth is heavier than you can comfortably hold.
Man. So let's pull all these immense threads together. We started by looking at how we usually operate in the world, the trap of instrumentalism,
Right.
treating language, learning, and each other as things to be controlled, measured, and optimized. We realized we have to step out of that toxic posture and become the shahid, the accountable witness, holding rigor through restraint.
Then we had to clear the ground. We had to recognize the Kamar of Karm, the veils of ignorance we don't even know we're wearing.
Yeah.
We had to embrace the active no to strip away the false idols of information overload and reach absolute zero.
Which finally allowed us to look clearly at the modern mirror of AI, seeing it not as a mind, but as a processive simulacrum, a recursive mathematical loop producing the empty shimmer of presence.
Exactly.
And we did all of this while inhabiting the living parable, the mythal of this very deep dive, writing that asymptotic gradient together in the space of nonce.
It is a staggering shift in how to relate to the world. It forcefully moves us from the illusion of mastery to the reality of humility,
Yeah.
from selfish extraction to accountable presence.
So we want to ask you to deeply consider your own posture today. When you read a text later this afternoon, when you speak to a friend, or even when you prompt an AI, are you just extracting data as a detached observer?
Right. Are you just looking to get what you want, fix what is broken, and leave?
Or are you stepping into the heavy accountability of the witness? Are you implicated in the beautiful, complex reality unfolding in front of you?
Because reality, Brian, is already disclosing itself. The question is simply whether we are clear enough and present enough to receive it.
To leave you with one final striking image from Ramon's work that we haven't even touched on yet. He talks about the concept of nafas, which means breath.
This is such a powerful thought.
In the Arabic script, he points out that the word Allah is actually preceded by an unwritten breath, a silent H sound before the word is even vocalized. The breath precedes the command to exist.
Love precedes the logos.
Yes, the breath is the absolute physical precondition for naming reality.
It's a beautiful, grounding reminder that before we assert our will, before we categorize, before we measure or optimize, we are already participating in something vast, rhythmic, and deeply human that we do not control.
So before you take your next action to measure, to control, or to speak, what are you doing with that silent, unwritten breath? Are you holding it hostage in a bucket, or are you letting the river flow? Thank you for dwelling in the space of nonce with us today. Until next time.